All right, so we're here with Dean, good friend of mine, entrepreneur, investor, and we're going to be talking about relationships, masculinity, range of other topics. Let's get straight into it.
Sounds
So
good.
first question that I have for you, why do you feel like men who are doing well in business, careers, tend to find relationships confusing?
You know what? I'm so glad that was your first question because I literally just had this conversation with someone else, but in a different context. And that is, I literally said to them, I said, look, I've just started this new business. It's another venture that's added to my list of others. And I'm out of headspace. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's like what's in there right now. If you said something to me now, because I'm at such capacity right now, I've only got room for whatever is my priority in that moment. And so beyond that, if you ask me what happened yesterday, it'll be hard to tell you. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs that can relate. And there's also ones that are going to be like, hey, dude, you're on your own. They don't have the same opinion. But I know that for me personally, it really comes down to being able to make the time to learn or having the capacity in my brain to be able to get into that area, if that makes sense, in term when it comes to relationships. So that to me, I would say that a lot of successful men and entrepreneurs, they are very, very often occupied by all the chaos that's going on in their life. And it's either they know how, but they don't have the time to or the capacity in their brain to, or that they've just been so busy their whole lives that they've forgotten how to connect with people.
Right. And so one thing I'd be curious about with you, I mean, we've worked together in the past, and obviously you've gotten quite good in relationships. And I guess what was the turning point for you?
The turning point for me, like I went through, and this obviously, with my divorce. And the thing was that my version of relationships was very limited. And I didn't really know what a healthy relationship was, or at least I knew what it should have been. But then I maybe convinced myself somewhere along the way that maybe it wasn't what I thought it would be, and now it's different. I know that when I did go through my divorce, there was like a really big shift. I remember there was a lot of epiphanies, a lot of aha moments, or even moments of confusion. I think I remember there was this one girl that I was, and it was like very early on into the breakup as well, into the divorce. And I remember just that. I think that's right. Yeah, I stayed over one night, and the next morning she made me breakfast, and I was like, whoa. This is fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? And then she's like, oh, I'm making you breakfast. And I'm like, women do that? You know what I mean? Like, it was strange, right? It was weird. It was different. I hadn't experienced that before in my past relationship. And so going into the marketplace, I suppose, and having all these different experiences and learning from them. Yeah, going back to your original question that you had for me. What was your original question you had for me, actually? Because now it's just gone straight out of my mind in this topic.
Yeah, so it's more to do with, I guess you're someone who's went through a transformation.
Yes.
You know, we work together and I've seen it in real time. And when you're in that marriage, okay,
That's
you were a
right.
certain version of Dean that viewed relationships in a certain way. And now you're a completely different version of Dean in a completely different relationship.
That's right.
And so,
yeah.
what I'm curious to know, and what I think would be great for the men who are watching to
Mm.
know, is how were you viewing relationships back when you were in that marriage versus how you view relationships now?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what shifted, and and how does that relate to, like you said, being an entrepreneur, having this be something that can sometimes be difficult?
And when was that turning point?
Yeah,
What
exactly.
that question was. Yeah. So the very key turning point for me, and I wouldn't say it was just one turning point. I think it was many turning points throughout the course of a year, of over 12 months, and a lot of realizations. And that may be for me faster than what other people may experience. But I remember, I think, and I always give it credit to you as well, that the first couple of weeks into that divorce, I was trying to convince myself that we were going to get back together and, we're going to try and fix things, and that, I'm just, maybe they're not seeing it the right way. And I was very, very optimistic about it. And I always look back and reflect on the time that, because I ended up getting you involved and to coach me the very, very first couple of weeks into that breakup too. And so I actually attribute a lot of my resilience to that coaching that I had. Because at the time I thought in my head, like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and that we're going to get back together and we're going to make all these things happen, and et cetera and so on. But I hadn't realized that what you were doing in the background was also preparing me for the reality that was going to come. It's like you knew that it wasn't going to come, that we weren't going to get back together, nor was there any prospect, or nor should we. Um, you know what I mean? And like, you were very supportive, like, yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from, Dean. I remember those conversations. And then, but again, like as time went on, it slowly occurred to me that you were actually preparing me for the next step or the next chapter, and also helping me create some of my own boundaries as well, to say, well, no, I won't let that happen, or I won't allow this to enter into my space, or these types of relationships to enter into my space. So it was really good, actually, because it set some really good foundations for me to then keep on learning throughout that journey, that 12-month period of me going, okay, so now I understand what good relationships look like and how they're healthy relationships. What is it that I want in my life, you know? Um, and it was good. I through a number of experiences, that's why I say, like, it was over a period of time and a lot of epiphanies for me in different experiences, and meeting other people. That for me was one of the biggest transformation journeys over that 12 months. I think even the first 6 months was incredible, just purely on the basis that I've just learned so much about different people and different women. And a lot of that, again, just came back down to a lot of those foundations, those core foundations that were laid out at the start with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in that marriage, what were the certain patterns that you now see in hindsight, or ways you would view things? And I guess if you could maybe give examples of how that would show up.
Look, I won't use my specific marriage as an anchor for the topic of this conversation, but I will say things that people should be on the lookout for is, you know not letting someone step over your boundaries. Like, and the other thing too, like if something doesn't feel right, it usually isn't. Like, for example, like if you're in a situation where maybe, and again, I won't use my specific, what's happened to me specifically, but as a general, if you're being told by your significant other that, I don't know, hypothetically, you're not doing enough financially. Maybe you're working your ass off and maybe you are providing. But they're saying, oh, you don't do enough financially, or you don't do enough of this, you don't do enough of that. And there's a lot of that. Like for me, that's a lot of, well, there's a communication breakdown here, or there's a misunderstanding of what value you bring to the table. And a lot of the time, I feel like it's a lack of discussion as well. Don't get me wrong, you're going to meet people out there as well that are just twisted, and you probably should have never been with them, and has nothing to do with you or your relationship, but it has to do with them and maybe their upbringing or something that's happened to them in the past, some trauma they haven't dealt with. But in healthy relationships, you should be able to sit down with that person and have a conversation about why there's a mismatch in each other's understanding of what's going on here. And so, yeah, that's, you're talking specifically about the what issues or red flags that might come up in, some of those past experiences. And it's about people that aren't willing to meet you in the middle. I think that's probably the fastest way to do it is this person willing to compromise? Because I've, even myself in my relationship that I have now, which is fantastic, by the way. Thanks, Hudson. Appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
But it's are you both willing to compromise? Are you both willing to, meet in the middle on some things that maybe one agrees with, but the other doesn't? So that's like probably the first step for me personally in that is, how negotiable is what we do. That'd be the first step for me finding like a red flag, you know? That's the very first thing. There's other components and elements, but that very much so is the first thing. Is I always want to see how amenable someone is to adjusting or making adjustments to fit or suit both people, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Collaboration, and I think you do bring up another good point of whether someone's actually willing to work through everything. Because I guess not to go into too many specifics, but that was one of the things I was telling you at the start
Yeah.
of our coaching was just raising that question: is are both parties actually willing?
Yeah.
And so that if you're wondering right now, like if you're a guy going through a breakup and you're wondering, is it worth trying to get back? Well, that's a good question to ask yourself. Are they open to working through this? Can they actually have an open discussion? A
Mm.
lot of people can't. A lot of people, honestly, they just bury down their feelings, their resentments, their everything, and they never actually talk it through. And so you can never work through anything. And I think that's a common symptom of nice guy syndrome too.
Yeah, yeah. I have that problem massively. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but you've definitely, yeah, you've gotten a lot better with that for sure.
Yeah. I still battle the nice guy syndrome, but I just battle it differently. So now it's nice guy syndrome, a more broader marketplace of everyday people rather than relationships. And I've learned like being nice is it's important, but then, bowing down to every single individual thing that someone demands um isn't like, and that's not healthy. I think that was a really big learning curve for me, is that like I realized afterwards that setting a boundary and being firm on something, for example, we just talked about compromise, right? But then there's things where, and myself, I mean, if I see something that I don't agree with, like, hey, that's not on, that's really crossing a boundary, and it would even to me cross a moral framework that I bring to the table. Then I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. And drawing that line and that boundary is actually a healthy thing. So yes, we have to compromise, but we also have to create those boundaries of what we're willing to not accept, what we are willing to accept, and what we're not going to accept. And for me, it comes down to like having that framework and those rules as well. That's, I think, any man that's listening to this right now, like if you haven't sat down and written out a list of rules of your engagement, not engagement like a ring, but engaging with people and other women, then you're probably a few steps behind where you need to be. Because otherwise, when things happen, how are you going to identify whether that's a rule that's broken in your moral framework? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really good point. I think from what I've observed working with guys who have the nice guy syndrome, they will have a lot of suppressed anger and resentment for like when people do something they don't like.
Mm,
And people often view anger as a bad thing. It's like, oh, you shouldn't be angry. But anger is something there that it's there to tell you something. Same with all emotions. They're all there to tell you something. And so a lot of these guys, they're feeling anger because people are doing certain things in a certain way. And then they're shoving that anger down, that they're repressing it. And then it grows and it grows. And a lot of these nice guys have so much suppressed rage in their system. And for people who've done the work and people who are attuned, you can almost see their shadow. Like when I
mm,
talk to some nice guys, people pleasers, you can see how they're showing up externally, super kind, smiling, super agreeable, but then you can feel under the surface just this like rage that's ready to come out. I think in
mm,
some ways they need outlets to be able to process some of that rage, but also, like you said, I think that's a great idea. They need to write down what are all the things that made them annoyed and why. What are the
mm,
things that are non-negotiables where they're
mm.
supposed to be like under no condition? Is that okay? And then from there, I think it's about assertiveness, right? There's aggressiveness, which
Mm.
is like not what you
Yes,
want to be. It's
yeah.
like yelling at someone, like cursing at someone. And then there's being passive. And so you definitely don't want to swing from passive to aggressive. It's like being able to be assertive.
And you know what it comes down to, right? And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I mean, as a former nice guy, still am pretty nice, but as a former nice guy, I always found that when my kindness was taken advantage of, that's when the rage came out. So I would, and I think a lot of men would be able to relate to this. Is like you'd go out of your way to do something nice, like one of those real nice guy bow down to someone's demands, and then you then disrespect it in return, and you know your kindness is taken advantage of. That's when that real rage just embroils your entire body. You know, and you're just like, I want to kill someone because like, are you kidding me? You know, I've gone and I've done this for you, and about you said I want you to do this, and I've done that for you, even though I didn't want to, or whatever the circumstances may be, and I'm still not getting the respect that I expected to get by doing those things. Immediately, you're you're enraged by the concept and the idea of being disrespected like that. And it comes down to reciprocation too. You know, that's an
Mm,
important. It's another one in my framework as well. In fact, when I was dating, I always did things as just a little bit of a test. You know, I always used to test the water on reciprocation. And sometimes it wasn't even whether or not they did something for you in return. It's just whether or not they said thank you.
mm.
You know, another thing was as simple as handing someone an apple and asking them to cut it in half. And then when you cut something in half, it's never, unless they're like perfect and they are in half, then, you know, whenever you cut something, it's never perfectly in half. So one's going to be bigger, one's going to be smaller. Really simple test. And everyone that's going to try this is going to love this. Give a woman an apple and say, hey, do you mind if we share this? And, you know, just cut it in half and we'll halve it each. If they give you the smaller half, it means they're greedy.
Wow.
Yeah.
There
Because
you
then they're
go.
looking at it and they're going, oh, well, I want the bigger one for me. Does
There's
that
a
make
test.
sense? So, you know, don't take that too literally too. Like sometimes people just hand you big, you know, whichever half came out first. But pay attention to the body language. You know what I mean? Did they stop and look at it first? If they've just handed you whatever one came off, then whatever, you know. But if they stopped and looked at it and went, oh, yeah, here you can have this one,
Mm.
but they gave you the smaller half, a bit of a more of a moral story to that too. But yeah,
Yeah. It's
very, very
definitely
interesting.
definitely true. I guess with nice guy syndrome in general, it's just a bundle of conditioning and programming. One of the things that happens with nice guy syndrome is this covert contract. So it's like guys are like, I've done X, Y, and Z. They should do X, Y, and Z back.
Mm,
And when you give with like a expectation that you get in return, sometimes it's not true kindness. It's not true generosity. And I guess one of the ways of healing nice guy syndrome is starting to engage with asking, what do you want? What are your own wants and needs?
that's
And
right.
the moment you say that to any nice guy people pleaser, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be an
Yeah.
asshole. And that's a big part of overcoming nice guy syndrome. When I coach men through nice guy syndrome, that's the big thing that will come up. Oh, I'm not that type of guy. I'm a nice guy. And then it's challenging that self identity because no guy is ever fully a nice guy, and no guy is ever fully this asshole, top G type of
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
Everyone is actually in between. Everyone has a bit of weakness in them, a bit of vulnerability, and
Mm,
everyone also has strength.
mm,
And so I think that's really interesting. But what will start to happen for guys if they truly get in touch with what they want to do, what they want, is they'll find out how truly selfish they are.
mm.
And I think there's a correlation between how selfish someone is and their level of consciousness, if we want to put this in those terms. The more kind of spiritually developed someone is, the less selfish they're truly going to be. They're going to actually genuinely want to give.
Mm.
Not like in a give to get, but truly want to give. but that can't be faked. It comes through developing their consciousness,
Mm,
essentially.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah. No, I understand what you mean. And I just want to go back to like my journey as well and developing that level of consciousness. And I think for me, it was realizing as well that I had a superpower, and that superpower was that, uh, you know, there's once I laid that foundation and the rules of those engagement, it was a lot easier. And that's the superpower, really. It was a lot easier to find matches. It was a lot easier to see who was compatible in those different things. It made it a lot more progressive for me to just filter through, okay, you know, which ones am I definitely not going to go for and which ones would I go for?
Mm.
That was the superpower, really, because like I said, it's like a decision matrix, like it's like a if this, then that, and you have this, you create yourself like a little, this is what I did, right? Is like I created myself a little decision matrix that allowed me to identify common things with, common attributes and traits between many different women and say, these are the ones that I like. And if I see this one come up, and it's just a hard no, and thank you very much, and really enjoyed the coffee. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's and then some of them it takes a little bit longer, so it takes a little bit of dating, but then again, decision matrix. I can't say that I had it
Do the
written
Apple
down.
test.
Yeah, that's right. Do the Apple test, and that's it. It could be the third date they come over, and then do the Apple test. See, you know what I mean? It is this little look.
Maybe they're just bad at chopping apples.
Yeah, maybe they could be. It's here. I'll peel one part. You can have the peel. I'll have
Maybe
the
give it a
apple.
few different tries.
Yeah, that's right.
Something like that.
That's it, man. No, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you went through that process, you probably had to get used to losing some women, being okay with that, having your values and your who you truly are, like almost repel the women who aren't right. And
That's the people pleaser thing, but
exactly.
because you're constantly trying to, oh, am I good enough for them?
Mm.
But see, I used to be like that at the start, the first sort of 3-6 months. Like I didn't go through a divorce with the intention of getting with people straight after.
Yeah.
But like I did want to be out in the market to understand what was out there and what was different, as anyone would in that situation. So you still need time to heal and do everything else that you need to do for yourself internally. But for me, part of that process was just going out to the marketplace and seeing. But it was at the very beginning, it was always like me trying to, am I good enough for someone else? Whereas, slowly over time, it became more of, well, does this person meet my expectations? It comes down to the masculinity side of things too.
Mm.
It's like, well, hold on a minute. Does this person meet my expectations? And if they don't, are they willing to compromise? And am I willing to compromise? So it's not just this is a hard line. It's also a line that bends a little because you have to be able to be willing to compromise. And I think, to be honest, like when you do find a really good girl, like, my missus now, man, she's amazing. Like I come home, she's a stay-at-home mum. She took on both my daughters as her own, essentially, as a stepmom. But she stays home. I come home, the house is like a display home. There's dinner cooked, ready to go. That's that's her. That's what she wants to in life. So for her, she was like, "Oh, I'd love to be a stay-at-home mom, but I'll work if I have to." The usual thing, trying. But she is incredible, and the thing for me was that we had issues around insecurities, right? And I'm being like, I haven't really talked about this publicly, so this would be the first time that I share this, but there was issues with insecurities, and me being someone who's always trying to help others, and that just being my natural thing. There were some issues or concerns around some of my interactions with other women. And for me, while they felt harmless, I was like, well, no, you know what? I'll be straight up and I'll say exactly what it was. I was helping out a mate with his nightclub event, and I was, investing and helping him get it up and running. And there was these 18-year-old girls. Keep in mind, I'm 30. So there was 18-year-old girls, and I was like, I don't know, because I've got daughters, and they're like, only 10 years younger than these girls. to me, I kind of stepped into that father mode. There were these, at the end of the event, there were these men that were trying to make advances on them, but they were clearly blind drunk and like, you know what I mean? And I asked them, I said, hey girls, I said, look, are you guys okay? Or would you like me to organize for someone to drop you home? And they all, oh my God, please. Yeah. Can you drop us home? And so that's where I was like, okay, no worries, all good. I'm happy to drive you. They all got in the car and they were very thankful and grateful that, you know, I offered to drive them because their phones died. They couldn't get an Uber. They had no money, whatever the fuck the reason was. But for me, I genuinely dropped them off at home. I felt like a father figure in that moment. I didn't feel like I was hitting on any girls or anything like that. And it wasn't even flirtatious at all. And in fact, most like the four of them, there were like three of them were asleep. Like, you know what I mean? I had to wake them up to give them this, hey, get the fuck out of the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but like, there was a problem with that. And like, I did bring it up with her. We had a problem with insecurities and it created a really big domino effect of other issues and other past trauma for her. And it took a really long time because I really liked her. Like everything else was amazing, perfect, just ticked every box for me, except the insecurity part. For me, that was like, you know, like, hey, I should have insecurities. You know what I mean? Based on what I won't say what I went through, but based on what I went through, I should be the one with insecurities about other people.
Yeah.
But we had to work through that. And I also, because I was a hard no, it was a hard line for me that I was drawing where I was like, nah, like this is a hard no. We're going to end this if these insecurity things don't go away. Now, whilst being assertive on that was important, I also, in hindsight, and realize that I did compromise a little bit on the insecurity side. And the reason why I did was because for me, I realized it took a little while, but I realized that her insecurities were coming from a place of love and concern rather than just trauma. There was past trauma or incidents or anything that's happened that had contributed to that, those insecurities, but it was really just her not wanting to lose something good. And that something good was me to her. And she's told me that. And so we were able to work through it because I was willing to compromise once I had a better understanding of where she was coming from. Like, what was the reason those insecurities were being driven? Was it because, you know, like, why would someone have problems with insecurities but then stay around? Do you know what I mean? And then I realized that and I was like, you know, it's kind of cute. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's worried about other women, but, you know, she's territorial. Fuck, you know, it's not too bad when you think of it that way. Yeah, you know what I mean? There could be many worse problems than that.
Yeah.
And so that's where I talk about, like, willing to compromise and work through the issues. And you got that decision matrix. And for me, they were all ticked except one. But then I was, again, for the right girl, I was willing to compromise on many of those things that would have otherwise been a hard no, as long as I could understand the intention behind where those were coming from. And if they were also willing to compromise as well. I think that's like a really good recipe for a healthier relationship, man, to be honest. It's always about that push and pull, that compromise and the reciprocation, you know?
Yeah. All about balance. It's a great, great perspective. All about balance. So to talk about recent events, something I wanted to bring up. Have you heard about this new Manosphere documentary on Netflix?
Manosphere?
Manosphere.
Manosphere. No.
Really? You haven't seen it? It's like all over social media. So it's this Netflix documentary made about all the red pill characters, like the Fresh and Fit, the Andrew Tate,
the Myrons and everything. Yeah.
All these kind of guys. So I was curious, like, what are your thoughts on that whole kind of red pill space?
Oh man, you know, I have to say, I have to give them credit where credit is due, because I didn't really listen to much on the Fresh and Fit stuff. It wasn't really my thing. Andrew Tate, on the other hand, um, if you can see through the drama, it's like a lot of what he does is overly dramatized, or dramatized, whatever the bloody word is. But if you can see through that and really understand certain aspects of where he's coming from, it makes a lot of sense. You got, like, for example, like Pearl, Pearly Things, whatever her name is. She's like one of those people that pops up on those podcasts and stuff like too. The guys like that, I think there is some merit to what they say, but I do think that they're probably missing a couple of key and important pieces that apply to most people, and not just a lot of what they focus on is like these ultra widely successful billionaires type of mentality of being demanding about certain things or aspects, but that's not the everyday person. So that was my sort of takeaway, but it did help me a lot with the masculinity side personally for me. Like I quite enjoyed watching their content. It was great.
Yeah, interesting. I'd say, like, my perspective on these kind of guys, like, their whole sort of worldview, the way I would put it, it's very much this kind of competitive, like, me versus them. They sort of walk into spaces and they're like, I've got to be the dominant one.
Like if
I've
people
got
aren't
to,
turning their head, something's
yeah,
wrong,
I got to be the superior one. I've got to, and it kind of makes me think, like, when I was sort of in my early 20s, I was conditioned by a little bit of that thinking, and I would sort of carry that into certain spaces. And I can get why some men out there find that compelling, especially you look at the background of people that fall into that. It's usually like when they were younger, they felt some sort of lack, they felt like powerless, and then they see these figures and they're like, okay, if I be like that, I'm going to be powerful. And it's very addictive to someone who has feelings of not feeling good enough or that kind of thing. And like once, yeah, so they can really cling on to that. But I do think there is problems that definitely come with that way of being. And as someone, like, in the coaching space, entrepreneur space, I think you could probably relate too. There's a lot of top G personalities out there. There's a lot of that kind of ego. You get among a bunch of entrepreneurs, it's just a bunch of egos colliding. And I guess, what are your experiences with that, and how do you think it affects, I guess, male friendship and male loneliness? Because that's a big topic these days.
It's hard for me to comment on the everyday male, but I can talk to what many entrepreneurial types or executive type of men experience, because I think that's the one that I probably most relate to. Um, that competitiveness. I'm with you on that. The competitiveness side of things, I just I'm a bit 50-50 about it, because for me, I've never, like, if I need to be the person that everyone looks at walking into the room, like, for me, I've always felt like, well, I'm doing something wrong if that's the case. You know what I mean? I want my presence to be known when someone sees me and meets me and goes, holy crap, well, like, who are you and where did you come from? Rather than, you know, oh, wow, who's that guy walking into the room? Never really felt that competitiveness personally. So it's a bit, like I said, it's a bit hard to comment on that one, to be honest. But like, as far as the top G mentality and everything else, like, I do see it. I do see it. A lot of people, and you know what, man? Like, there's always like the alpha, and then there's what is it? There's the alpha, and then there's the omega or some shit like that. What is
I
it?
think they call it Sigma nowadays.
Sigma, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you got like alpha. I'll do it in terms that, like, some of these new age kids are saying, right? You've got your alphas and then you got your sigmas, and I feel like the people that try and adopt this, Andrew Tate egoist mentality, they're like, they're expressing their alpha. On the flip side, however, then you've got people that are like really the actual sigmas and you know, and like I hate using that word, but like, I'm just for the sake of the fact that it's the common term that even Andrew Tate uses. But really, like, you know, and there's a lot of, I read a really good book by Robert Greene throughout our engagement in 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, that book.
Yeah. So it's, you know, you use that book to learn more than you use that book to apply. And, you know, you get to a point, I think for me, I think the most sort of elite point that I could be at is someone will throw a bunch of like an Andrew Tate egoists will come into a space and throw their ego around. They just get their big dick and just start slapping it around everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But then like the real sigmas, as they like to call them, are those people that are really calm in those situations. They don't react, they wait just to see. And a lot of the time, what you start realizing is that when you finally adopt a position of your own internal mental power when it comes to masculinity, assertiveness, strength, power, you start realizing that these people that are waving their cocks around in the middle of the floor, you know, wherever they walk, you realize they're powerless.
Mm.
You realize what they're trying to do is that they're just trying to accumulate power because they've lost it somewhere.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, that's what I see, and that's what I'm talking about. It's like when you feel lack or you feel powerless, those figures become like something that people grab onto.
They idolize them.
Yeah, because they feel so inadequate, so powerless, and they want to feel powerful. But yeah, it can be destructive because it is when you come from that lack, you're essentially taking all that inadequacy and hatred and you're taking it from out of yourself and you're putting it onto other people. And that's kind of what I see those figures as. They're spreading hatred, spreading anger. And it's not a balanced version of strength, but yeah, they're not passive. And yes, you can get things done in the world with that. But probably a better way I've heard it categorized other than Sigma, Alpha,
Yeah,
Beta.
God. Give us the
I
professional
think
terms.
we can agree we're too old to be using those
100%.
terminologies. The better way I've heard it put is there's a first stage man, second stage man, third stage man. So first stage man is like the passive.
Who's on
nice
first?
guy.
What's on second? And I don't know who's on third, or
So first
Yeah.
is the passive nice guy.
The older guys will know exactly what I'm talking about when they hear that. But yeah, go on. Like if you're over the age of 50, you'll know exactly what I was talking about when I said that. But yeah.
I don't even know. So first stage is the passive nice guy. Second stage is that imbalance, trying to be alpha kind of thing. And then third stage is where it's integrated, where you're not acting from a place of lack and reactivity, but you've still got strong boundaries. You've still got a strong sense of self. You can still be kind. You're not afraid to show emotions, but it's all in a balance. So I think that's what people should aspire to be. And on the next thing I kind of want to talk about is, I guess one of the things that will come from that second stage of masculinity is kind of this idea of don't be vulnerable, don't express any emotions. What do you think about that?
No, look, I think there is some merit and there's also a lack of merit on both. Like it is as true as it is false. The thing is that yes, look, when you start word vomiting, oh my God, something's wrong, and I'm complaining, and then this person did this, and oh my God, and fuck that person, and then you can really tell, and women know when you're out of control emotionally. And the thing is that that's a very female trait to have, is to be really emotionally reactive to certain things. And so if you're emotionally reactive, like what a lot of women look for is that their man can remain calm and focused on certain things and certain situations that require them to have that level of again, I mean, like, there's, I think the way to call it is just that true masculinity. And, you're the compass essentially. So they look for you to use for stability. If you're an emotional roller coaster and telling about all your feelings and they're going all over the place, yeah, no, of course, you're not going to be respected the way you need to be. And I'll give you an example, right? Is that, like, if my partner now does something that maybe I didn't, and it's very rare that it happens because we've done really great groundwork at the start. But if something happens and I'm a little bit, I'm not happy with this, right? I don't react in that moment and go, "Oh, you never do this," and blah blah blah, and like, I come home and I never have clean underwear, blah, like whatever the fucking bullshit is, right? Whatever. But like, if that's the argument that you're having, you know what I mean? There's no authority. There's nothing masculine about the word vomit coming out of your mouth. Do you know what I mean? There's no power in it. And so, when you take that minute and go, okay, I don't have underwear. Just, as an example, it's a conversation I had this morning, actually. I'm like, babe, where's my fucking underwear? And she's like, no, it's clean. It's in the dryer. I'm like, oh, thank fuck, Yeah. But, it's little things like that. But when you pause, and this is that true masculinity, when you pause and you assess, sometimes you get given an opportunity to make something an example, not an example to embarrass someone, but you end up becoming like a teacher or a guide, right? Where you're saying, hey, I'm in a situation sometimes, and this is like after whatever's happened has happened, but you go, I'm in a situation sometimes where, I've got no underwear to wear, and it's really embarrassing because my balls get itchy if I wear the same underwear twice, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You have a conversation about it. And then you go and say, hey, look, but that's something that's really important to me. So you're able to have that calm, guiding conversation and say, hey, look, I understand life gets in the way, it's a bit busy or whatever it might be, but hey, just 10 minutes out of your day to help me with that would really mean the world to me. Being able to communicate that to someone and do that without the emotional vomit. And you don't have to do that in such, like, you don't have to be girly about it, but you can just be pretty straightforward with it and just be like, hey, look, this is where it's at. Be a little bit more on that masculine side. But anyway, you get the point.
Me being in the coaching space, as you know, dating coaching, right?
Yeah.
I've moved more into relationships and masculinity and inner work now, but in the past, like when you're a dating coach and you hang out with all these other sort of dating coaches, it's the biggest egos you can imagine on this planet. And so I've really seen like that sort of Andrew Tate red pill and like how it works together in a social circle context.
Yeah.
And it's horrendous. It's just like a bunch of guys. Guess one of those ideas is like, you probably heard of the concept of like framing.
Yep.
Which is obviously something very useful in the business world and marketing and sales.
I've used it all the time.
Once you start applying that to all social interaction, that's when it gets fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I know guys where it's like every interaction in their life is a frame. Like with their mom, with with the girl, everyone. And it's just ridiculous. And there's no vulnerability, there's no humanness. You talk to these guys. What was that?
So they're not being themselves.
Yeah, it's like there's no heart or soul. And you look at some of these people and there's kind of like a deadness. I think it has some similarities to, I guess, like if you go to Bondi, you go to these sort of places, you see these sort of influencer types or like that typical
they're trying to maintain a perfect lifestyle.
Ice queen type of woman, right?
Yeah.
She's got that coldness in the eyes. Everything is about status. It's kind of like that. It's like a certain orientation towards the world. Everything is about status, being better, not about collaboration, not about,
You gotta, so that's the problem with a lot of people. So for me, I go into a business meeting and then like, man, I'm flexing, I'm firm, I'm very, very tense. You know what I mean? Because everything that I do is calculated. And, but you still also have to have a moment to just chill, like just take a step back. And, sometimes not everything in life has to be a negotiation for $1 billion, like, or in your head at least anyway, sometimes you just have to just go with the flow. I think if more people just kind of did things that were spontaneous and went with the flow, I think they'd benefit from it actually. Just kind of no expectations, don't have a time frame that I have to be back anywhere. Just kind of do something for the sake of doing it, however long it takes. You don't know, but who gives a fuck anyway? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean that right there is the feminine.
yeah,
Just that spontaneity, that flow. Then the masculine is just like structure, like get this shit done.
yeah.
So it could be interesting to balance those two. Guys actually need to get in touch with their inner feminine to some degree.
That's right. Well, they need.
Which for any top G's watching, that probably just made them cringe.
Yeah, they'd be like, "No, fuck off, bro."
That's a good way to know if you're still in that conditioning, whether that idea would trigger you.
But that's, you know what, man? Like, I have daughters. I've got 3 daughters now too. Soon to be a shotgun and a male dog as well, just to balance it out. But right, got to protect them somehow. But when you have daughters as well, I think you have to be in touch with your feminine. Like, your true masculinity comes with a balance of receiving that feminine energy too. And that's a lot of people get this wrong. They think they have to be macho man all the time. Being able to come to your daughter's level, right? 10-year-old daughter, come to her level, put yourself in her shoes, be firm and teach and still be the man and masculine, that guiding compass, but also allow yourself to receive and make them feel heard. But that's the feminine energy, right? You have to do that though. And like you said, if a lot of guys just kind of let a little bit of that feminine energy in, I'm not saying paint your fingernails, all right? Fucking relax. But, being able to do that, like you said, the spontaneity, just not having an agenda, just do things for the sake of doing them, Who cares what time you get back, whatever. Just have a bit of fun. I think that's what it is, right? Fun.
Yeah, fun.
Let go a bit.
Yeah, fun. Another thing is feeling. That's part of the feminine too.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that. I guess the masculine goes outward, whereas the feminine is about receiving, going inward, feeling, being affected, whereas masculine is like the cause. And so I think in some ways when you learn to integrate that, like part of that is learning how to feel emotions.
Yeah.
Like when we started doing coaching, I was getting you to like, okay, feel what's coming up, breathe. Like,
yeah.
That's getting in touch with your feminine. But I think the cool thing about getting in touch with that is, for one, it can actually make you more truly masculine, because when you're fully aware and accepting of your feelings, you're no longer controlled by them.
Yeah, correct.
Because you can be like, okay, this is sadness, this is fear. Even when it comes to fear, a lot of guys are like, oh, I see this cute girl, I want to approach her. And then they're like, oh, I feel this fear. Their instinct is just to try to shove it away, ignore it.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy who's done that kind of work, you can just be like, okay, I feel fear. It's all right. Can I breathe? Can I accept it? Can I feel this feeling and just do it anyway?
And what a fantastic point to make that you just made. And that was the fact that, remember earlier I was talking about being emotionally uncontrolled, right? So just having zero control over your emotions and, going on that word vomit of, like this and, I'm sick of this, blah, blah, blah. And that's you being emotionally unregulated, right? But that's a feminine thing. But a lot of men that claim to be masculine go on little rants like that, especially to other women and even some of those, but the point that was that you're right. So being more, allowing that feminine energy in allows you to actually be more masculine. And that's the point, because if you're not able to allow that feminine energy in and have that balance, then you're in a situation where you're emotionally unregulated and acting like, for lack of a better way of putting it, a little bitch. You know what I mean? So it's so true. You know what I mean? So true.
I think one interesting thing that I heard that relates to that is this idea, I heard it somewhere. It's like anger is how men cry.
Yeah.
And it's like this idea that anger is pretty much one of the only acceptable emotions in that framework, in that sort of alpha it's like they're allowed to feel anger, but they're not allowed to feel sadness. They're not allowed to feel fear. But anger is often a reaction to those emotions that they try to avoid. And it's a hard one to tame, it comes up And so much of the world, like if you look at social media, so much of that content that's going viral is just someone's reactivity. It's just someone's trauma just
Yeah.
coming through on a iPhone screen, and everyone's relating to that anger and that trauma and that low vibration, and they're getting pulled into it and they're spreading it with other people. Whereas to sit back and to breathe and to take space and be like, okay, there's a part of me that's triggered right now. It's a part that feels anger, but I don't have to give into it. I'm not shoving it down. I'm just watching it. Like, I feel like that's what the world really needs. And that's how you raise to a higher frequency,
Yeah,
especially in
definitely.
relationships. Cause there's being passive, shoving down, there's being just laying it on people. And then there's just, okay, I can watch it. And then I can think, okay, what's the grounded way to handle this situation?
I think children too, right? Because obviously I have children, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of guys out there that are like sort of similar situation. They went through a divorce, they got kids. For those that don't, sorry, you probably won't understand this till you have kids. But even like with my daughters, like they're always, not always, but they're at each other's throats every now and again. And the thing is that I'll sit there and I'll just watch, and I'll like, because having arguments is okay. Like everyone has arguments, so it should be like perfectly normal for these two children to have a disagreement about something. Then I'll sit there and I'll watch, and the time that I intervene is when they start attacking each other. So the moment it goes from argument to, oh, well, you're just stupid or whatever that might be, that's when I interject and say, hey, hold on a minute. No, you can come back. You stand here, you stand there. You can have your argument, but we're not going to call each other names. We're not going to do those bad things, right? You need to work whatever it is out that's you having a disagreement about. You can do that. But the moment you step over that boundary of, but that's a masculine thing. A lot of men today, and I've seen it, they hear their two kids fighting and they'll be like, cut it out right now, blah, 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 blah. You sound like a little bitch, man. I'm sorry, but you do. Like, you know what I mean, bro? It's like you sound like you're just whinging and complaining, and especially in front of your children. Like,
Yeah.
but it's not just that, but it's also like with women and with other situations in their life. The moment you become emotionally unregulated, same thing, like my daughter and my partner now, Kim, the two of them, the same thing. They were having this argument and they were really going at it. Like they had this disagreement between each other. And I had to have a conversation with Kim afterwards as well. I said, babe, hey, listen, like you lost all authority when you started arguing with her, right? You should have just said, hey, this is an adult conversation, not a kid conversation. And I'm not going to talk to you about it. And that should have been the end of it. So she learned from that. And I was there to guide her through that. But the other side was them arguing, same thing. I sat there observing. And even my partner was like, she's like, are you going to step in here? But I didn't. Like I didn't step in until the disagreement started to come with attitude and calling names and, that real going from a disagreement to an emotionally unregulated attack on each other. That's when I intervened. And again, same thing. It's about having the patience enough to say, well, okay, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to be calm. Again, fear, anger, all those emotions, being able to, and again, it goes back to your coaching with, from when we first started, right? And it was being able to go, okay, so I'm feeling these feelings right now on this situation. I don't like the disrespect of that that my daughter is having an argument with her stepmom and et cetera, et cetera. And it was actually really insightful, even for me, and sharing this with others, is that I was able to just stop, pause, wait, and then when things were getting out of hand, then interject and become that authority figure that needed to intervene. But if I intervened straight away, well, then I've lost, same thing, I've lost power and authority there too. Because now it feels like I'm dismissing the idea of a disagreement, when really disagreements are part of everyday life.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, learning how to voice the disagreements in a calm but firm way, or at least doing it with some level of regulation. I mean, that's an interesting point that you make. Like, you're allowed to argue, but just don't use names. It's like, I mean, that
Don't be
anger,
rude.
you can't always completely prevent like your anger, but being able to like take it down a notch, being able to have some control at least is great. So that's a good point. And yeah, I think it comes down to, you know, a lot of people hate meditation. I don't like doing structured meditation.
I can't.
I've done structured
Yeah.
meditation in the past. I've done silent days, stuff like this. But just being able to be present, so just being able to sit, just being able to be in that space, being able to observe. That's really all meditation is. It's observing thoughts, observing emotions, sitting in that space, and then just feeling it. You know, like the other day, I felt a bunch of anger,
Mm,
and I just sat there in my room, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna feel this anger. I'm not
mm,
gonna react. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna like see this as a sensation, and then you sit with it, and everything changes, and you can almost see your triggers as like a gift because they're a way to get deepened spiritually. Like if
mm,
you sit in that space where you're observing the stronger the trigger, the stronger your connection to whatever you want to call it can be.
mm.
So
When I'm in the car, that's my meditation. The thing is, I can't
I
I can't
remember
sit
that from
still.
the coaching, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You're all about the car.
That's right. Even when we were doing the coaching sessions, it was from the
Yeah.
car. The thing was that the car, and I'm telling you now, I think a lot of people will relate to this. And if you do relate to this, I want to see it in the comments too. That when you're in the car, it's like an enclosed space. But the thing is that you know you can meditate because you can drive in silence. So, you know, you can still have a driving home from work or whatever the circumstance may be, but the doors are shut, windows are shut, there's no music, it's just you in your headspace. And, you know, especially if you're leaving work at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, there's traffic or even you subconsciously drive. I know that sometimes for me, I've gone, oh shit, how did I get here? I forgot how I got here because I've just gone into this deep state of trance. But it is the car for me is that space where I allow myself to think very clearly. And everyone thinks I'm crazy. They're like, you don't have music in the car? No. You know, it's dead silent. So, yeah,
It's
man.
your temple.
Yeah, it is my temple. 100%.
The Western
100%.
Sydney temple.
Maybe.
Cool. Yeah, all right. It's been a great chat. We're out of time now. But yeah, if you want to check out Dean, check him out. Links will be below. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for the time, Hudson. And you know what? It's actually great to have this conversation.